Self-Aware Entrepreneur Show on this Thursday afternoon. Thank you for joining us no matter where you are today in the world. And I hope the sun is shining on you, or at least the light is coming into your world and making you feel optimistic, hopeful for a future where things are starting to open up and starting to, the possibilities and options are endless. And sometimes the decisions are everywhere. But what we can really do is take a hold of that and spend the next half an hour listening to some great insights, a really compelling story, and something that will definitely leave you feeling uplifted, upbeat, and empowered. And joining me today is the wonderful Evelina of Elite Mind. And really, it's very difficult to describe what she does because she's got so many different strands to her work. But really, what she's a specialist in is looking at professional development and organizational development and really kind of binding the two together, taking aspects from evolutionary psychology, from neurobiology and from neuroscience, and really working on that cutting edge, taking the latest research and making it actionable for organizations and for people to build sustainable habits, to really start to look after themselves and find the areas where they can flourish and thrive and really start to be able to express themselves in the world. So, Evelina, thank you for joining me today, and it's an absolute pleasure that you're with us.
Wow, Lee, thank you so much for such a nice introduction. Really, really pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, it's, we've got a lot of similarities in our work, and whenever we speak, it just becomes a point where we have to kind of, sometimes we're time limited because we just want to keep speaking because it's we've both got really engaging stories, and a lot of the people listening will really kind of resonate with your journey. But I just want to, ask first of all, Evelina, what have you been up to recently?
Oh, where do I start? Well, as you know, I'm working with organizations as organizational development and well-being consultant. But recently, because of the pandemic, I've been doing much more mental health and well-being work. And I also have another startup that we co-founded with some of my great people and networks that I know to really support people through mental health crisis that this pandemic has actually created. So it is a big, exciting project, and I'm looking forward to sharing some more of that with you sometime soon.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I work in a world of high performance, and I work in a world of people who have the ability to kind of deliver projects with with intensity, and most of them are self-aware enough to be able to kind of push and take a step back and realize that we can't always be full on the tank. But when speaking to you, Evelina, you're like a massive bag of ideas and just putting them all together, and it's like I run my own business and I've got this startup on the side, and it's just you seem to be able to generate amazing momentum in a number of different directions, which is a real skill. But again, like we often say, that's a skill that you've built over time. So let's actually talk a little bit about young Evelina and the parts of your childhood that have now come into becoming the woman that you are today.
Well, it's interesting reflecting on this, because I'm often told that, how much am I doing, and how on earth am I managing to do this? I'm running several businesses, I'm running startups, I'm volunteering at different places, I'm also a single mom, I also study at university, as all of that is not enough, like let's get a master's degree on top of that. And to me, it doesn't feel like I'm doing a lot. It doesn't feel like I'm doing nowhere near enough what needs to be done in a world that we live in, right? And I think that's the difference of living life with purpose and meaning, right? When you go through some journey and you find something that really drives you, then it doesn't matter. Sometimes people say like, oh, how do you manage your time? And I'm saying like, I don't manage my time. I manage my energy and my intention and my purpose. And when you act from that generates results. And then with the little time that you have, you can create so much more and you can achieve so much more. So it's definitely, through some of the journey, through the experiences, that we learn to discover our own purpose and who we are, and that then makes the difference. So yeah, which I guess kind of brings me to that, to your question, right? So what is that? What got me here, right? How did I get to where I am? Yeah, where do I start? Well, I'm as you know, I've mentioned to you before, I'm from Lithuania, and I came to UK I think now 17 years ago or so. But I never planned to stay here. It was supposed to be just a short summer holiday, and I didn't even speak the language. So, if you put yourself in that context, which I think it's quite valid today, right? You think people go through so much change, we need to adapt to work from home, right? That's a big stressful change for people, right?
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
then you put that into context. Imagine you wake up one day and you find yourself in a foreign country. You don't speak the language, you don't have residency permits, you don't have all of your documents, money, you don't have your family or friends with you, and you have to make a new life like this. You have to create everything from nothing, right?
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
How does that feel?
Yeah, and I think that, the biggest way to think about that for people is you came here on a holiday, and you didn't even have the mindset and intention to reside here. So for anyone who's listening, obviously you're in a position of real privilege to have English as a native language because of its widespread use. And how often do we actually take a step back and think about that? But actually, if we were to, as an English citizen, to literally go on holiday, I know, well, we can't really do that at the moment, but you go on holiday somewhere and just imagine if that then very quickly transformed into you actually residing there, you having to build a life, you having to learn the language, you're having to adapt to the culture, and ultimately what was, a nice trip becomes your life. And that's a significant shift, and that's what you went through.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, if somebody was to kind of ask me now, like, looking back to all of the things that I had to go through to create everything, if someone was to ask me, would I do this again? I would say, no way. Because if I knew what's waiting for me ahead, I would have never signed up for that, right? It's like, no way. These crazy few years, and literally, I had to sleep 4 hours a night for several years, working several jobs and learning the language. And I also felt like I left so much behind, it's like, because I haven't planned to stay here. I back home, I had everything, right? I had my family, I had my friends, I had my government-funded place in country's best university, and it's like, there was nothing missing there. So because I felt like I left so much behind and I couldn't really go back, I was determined to create something more out of this. Like, okay, right, I cannot go back, like my pride wouldn't allow me to like go back empty-handed, with debts and so on. I had to create something more than I left behind. So I had this, I think up now, I would say this youthful, naive determination, that I know a lot of people would kind of like, admire looking from the side. But at that time, I think I just had faith in myself, in the situation, and I never doubted myself for whatever reason, and I think that then links to maybe the way I've been brought up, and the environment, and the way we kind of nurture our kids, and how we support each other, that develops these kind of strong belief systems that I never asked, well, can I do this or can I not? That thought was never even in my mind. What I was asking, like, okay, so I have to create new life here. How am I going to do that? Okay, I have to learn the language. How am I going to do that? Okay, I have to build my family, my career, how am I going to do that? So I never asked, can I do this or not? I only asked how. And I think that's the trick sometimes from the mind's point of view, because if you want better answers in your life, we need to learn how to ask ourselves better questions. And as soon as you start asking, oh, can I do this or can I not? Of course, mind will give you all sorts of, excuses why you shouldn't, why you can't. But when you ask how, then the direction of the path is already is already set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's powerful, isn't it? Because that really puts like a solution focused intention. How? And how can I solve this? And, we live in a world where so often there's like a balance between looking for inspiration to take action and actually being fired and fueled by the desperation and need to take action. And obviously putting yourself in a position which was, it was uncomfortable for you to be able to, come and have to adapt and manage and ultimately utilize the skills that you had and build upon those to, start to create a foundation to, really kind of find that purpose and deliver success. Because like you said, at home you could have returned to the comfort of all the things you'd achieved, but you decided to make a decision to actually stay in an uncomfortable place, and that really fueled you to do the amazing things that you do today. And that naive determination has become self-aware, understood ability of what you can achieve. And obviously now you run those multiple roles in your life as a parent, as a caregiver, as an entrepreneur, as a woman, and it's like the ability to switch those hats, like you say, sometimes, and we got stuck in this time management kind of matrix from the 80s where if we just section things off, we'll be able to achieve all. But in all truth, like you say, it's actually about managing your energy and managing your attention, because we don't only live in a world that can drain our battery with stimulation very, very quickly if you're trying to switch between tasks incessantly, but also our attention is being pulled around. And if you're able to, put your attention in a focused, sometimes, we're omni-passionate. We've got a lot of different things that we're passionate that we're pushing, but that's actually possible.
Yeah. It is, and I think bringing all these things together into one purpose, that makes a difference, because sometimes people say, like, how do you do so many different things? And to me, they are all driving me to achieve the same purpose, the same results. It's just different means, maybe in different environments for different people, but the purpose behind it is the same, right? And when you look back, in the situation where I was, and kind of like what helped me to find, some of that purpose is, I was in that environment where I'm kind of, building my new life and doing, hundred of things at the same time, sleeping 4 hours a night, and I'm studying and raising a child. I'm working at several jobs. I'm really scrambling to make something out of myself. But, it didn't feel enough, because I also felt that guilt for leaving my country, for leaving my family. So to soothe a little bit of that guilt, I then went to volunteer for a charity called Maitri that works with suicidal people. And the reason I've chosen to do that is because Lithuania has one of the highest suicide rates in the world. So when I was growing up, to kind of illustrate the severity of it, I think I probably know maybe 7 people in person who took their own lives. But when you are in that environment, you don't think about it. You don't challenge those assumptions. It's like, well, that's what people do. Things get too much and off you go. But then when you come to different environment and you're able to kind of step away from that and look back at it, then you realize the severity of that. So when I went to this charity, this Maitri, to volunteer there was this moment that really, I think, it was quite profound for me, because it really shaped the direction where I am now. And I was sat there in this respite center for suicidal, and right in the front of me, there is this person that I look at him and I think, well, this guy has it all. He has good career. He's got, great job, prestigious job. He's got money. He's got family. He's got grown-up kids. So he's got, all the freedom to do what he wants with his life. He has good looks. You name it, right? And there he is, sat in this respite center for suicidal, not wanting to live. I'm on the other end of the table. I'm the one supporting him. It's like day and night. I'm in a foreign country. I don't have support. I don't have family here. I don't have money. I don't have this kind of career. And I'm just like working, as a cleaner in a hotel at night and washing dishes during the day and all of these things, right? Just to create something for myself. But I never felt that way, right? So to me, it was that question, well, so what makes a difference? because this is not just about me, and this is not just about him, and this is not what about happens to us. Because when I was growing up, and you could see kind of those people taking their own lives, and you think, well, some things happen to you and it's just too much for you to cope, and off you go.
Yeah.
But why people have such a different level of threshold of coping with things? And I felt incredibly guilty there, and I felt like, what is it that I have that this guy don't?
Yeah.
And what is it that I need to give? Because if I don't know what I need to give, I can't help.
Yeah.
And there was this kind of hopeless need for me to discover what makes that difference so I could help. And that what really started me on this journey of psychology and neuroscience. And it got me into this kind of evolutionary learning in terms of how we got to here in terms of our life, but far beyond that, what shapes us as human beings, what shapes our resilience, what shapes the way we deal with this stress, pressure, and change. And that's how I kind of started searching some of those research and answers. And a lot of those answers were, for me, in positive mindset, right? You think like, you develop this strong positive mindset that you think you are invincible, you can do everything, the way parents raise you, like, you can do anything you like. You go to things like, those questions that I asked, like, the things we say to ourselves, like, you don't doubt yourself, you ask, how can I do it?
Yeah.
So for many years, a lot of research and a lot of this kind of positive psychology movement, really, I thought that that's all that there is, right? It's a mindset, it's a strength.
Yeah.
Until I collapsed at work without being able to walk, without being able to breathe. I couldn't feel one of my hands. My body just completely gave up. And that was a big shock to me because I couldn't understand what's happening. Like, I was a strong, powerful person, and then suddenly my body physically gave up, which, it's again relating to what you were experiencing as well in some of your story, right?
Yeah, and it's that very similar kind of journey where, I don't know, we do live in a world where there's elements of toxic positivity wherever we are, and this honest belief that we can endure, and that endurance is resilience. And if we continue to endure and tell ourselves positive messaging, that we'll be able to continue to be this beacon. Except at some point, we actually do honestly run out of batteries and we fade. And
that's
obviously,
how people burn out, and that's the burnout is, it's these people who are the strongest, the ones who never say no, the ones that you can give all the extra work and they'll take it on with a smile and they'll say, I can do it. Those are the ones that will burn out. Because why? Because those people are, it's this strong mindset is the biggest enemy. You think everything is possible. You think you can do everything. And that results in you not actually really seeing some of those maybe signs and symptoms that your body is saying, well, enough is enough. You need to pause. You need to rest. You need some balance. You need to look after yourself. You cannot pour from an empty glass. And yet some of these high performers, most of them, the entrepreneurs, business owners, top executives, they constantly run on this high level stress, on this high level positivity, on this motivation, which is inspiring and motivating. And you look at them and you think like, wow, this person can do anything, and it's positive. But when I end up with my tumor, when I ended up needing to have that operation, and the night before the operation, when the doctors come in to explain to you what's going to happen to you, then you have to sign this document that says, I agree with all the consequences of this operation, including my own death. And that night I looked back on my life and I think like, okay, I've done all of this, right? I've built everything from nothing. I was nobody, and I got to the place where I have respectable career and job and my own projects, and I'm volunteering to help others, and I have family, and I have money, and I have great lifestyle. I've created all of that in quite a short period of time. But at what cost? At what cost did I get here, right? You sacrifice your health, you sacrifice your well-being, you sacrifice your family, you sacrifice your relationships. I regretted every moment I didn't spend with my girl when she was growing up, and
Yeah.
there's so many things that you then regret, and you realize that that's not it. Life is not about that. Life is not about this specific
Mm.
career or money or prestige or so on. It's about doing things that matters to you, about things that are meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah.
And that's when I recovered and then made that intention that, okay, I need to bridge the gap between those two worlds that I was living in, this, high performer, this, executive operational leadership. And on the
Yeah.
other hand, I was working with those very vulnerable people who are struggling with mental health, with suicidal thoughts. Like, those two things, cannot exist.
Polar opposites.
Exactly. So my work when I started, it was still, I started incorporating mental health and well-being into traditional leadership development programs,
Yeah.
which was when I started doing that. That was still, nobody did that. It was
Yeah.
like leadership is all about your business performance, about your KPIs. It's all about your profit line and so on, and
Yeah.
getting people to perform at that level of that's required.
Yeah.
And I integrated all of this mental health and well-being, and I said, well, you only achieve those results through personal growth, through personal development, through health and well-being. It cannot come at the cost of their individual sacrifice.
Yeah.
And very interestingly, that now this is exactly what is needed, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's
And now I'm so
really,
grateful that during this pandemic, companies are now really opening their eyes that, there are no those boundaries anymore, between work and your personal life.
yeah.
We work to live, and our work has to be integral part of our lives. It has to be meaningful. It has to be purposeful. Work has to be supportive of everything that we want to create. And it's definitely, there's a lot of challenges, but I'm really grateful to be in a place where, I've gone through all of that journey, and maybe now I can share some of those tools and techniques and knowledge and some of my own stories and experiences, so people can learn from that and not necessarily need to end up where I was,
Yeah.
going to that point, to actually create those healthy environments, to create those healthier ways of living our lives.
Yeah. And I think it's like our work's so similar in that respect where, we kind of stepped into differing fields and realized that actually leadership and performance is fueled by well-being.
Yeah.
But well-being is actually planted in an organizational culture.
Yeah.
And if people are able to be well, then they are able to perform in a sustainable way. Instead of performing off fear, they'll actually be performing off flourishing and thriving. And that kind of connection, and realizing that actually we've always had this tendency to go personal development, professional development, organizational development. Actually, they intersect so closely that actually we need to be kind of looking to build all those together in frameworks that actually assist them to continue to grow, to attach people's meaning and purpose and values to an organizational, but also to the careers that they're going to build, especially given the future of work and how things are dynamically changing. And that allows people to find a space to build the skills of well-being, of looking after themselves. Because like we said, we live in a world where positive mindset is pretty high up, but actually it can be the antithesis of self-awareness, because you can, really toxically, positively, reframe everything and not find a way to express those negative emotions, not find a way to healthily navigate challenges by looking at the realism and being functionally optimistic.
It's great
Because
what you're saying here.
yeah,
Absolutely. Because, people become kind of obsessed with this, what you say, like toxic negativity, where, you become blind to all other things, including maybe some of your own weaknesses, some of your
yeah,
development areas. And
yeah,
there is this, aspect in psychology, attention blindness, where it's
yeah,
proven that when you focus on your attention on something, you become blind to other things around you. So
yeah,
we create this all the time, like, you focus on something, but you know what? by focusing on that, you might be missing out some bigger, greater things. You're missing out on some opportunities. You're missing out on so many other things. Even like, when people set the goals, and in coaching, let's say, somebody comes in and say, well, this is exactly what I want. And most coaches will actually work towards that. Let's make it specific. Let's make it timely, all of your SMART goals and everything.
Smart goals.
Yes, SMART goals and everything. But it's not healthy, because it's like you're saying, I'm going to go here. But actually, there might be this amazing place out here that you are not even seeing, because you are so focused on this narrow point. And instead of setting these very specific goals, KPIs and targets for ourselves, for our lives, for our businesses, we should be setting direction, purposeful, meaningful direction. So you create the vision of what you want to create in the world, and off you go on that direction with a very, very open mindset, looking at who do I need to become to make this reality, right? Because who you are today is not the same person who's going to make that dream and vision into reality. Because if you were, you would already have that.
Exactly.
Right? So it's looking at you, your personal growth inside out. And like I'm always saying, like all of the goals we achieve, it's not something out here that I'm going to achieve something there. Nope. You achieve things through you by growing up to become the person who is now able to manifest that into reality. And by saying manifest, I'm not talking some law of attraction things. I'm really talking about the actual skills and values and purpose and beliefs and all of that you have to be to then be able to create that reality for yourself on your own terms, rather than feeling like you're always a victim of your environment and of your surroundings, right?
Yeah, and I think the easiest way to describe it for people that I often use is that, we decide we're going to buy a new vehicle, and we go on the internet and we start looking at different colors and different specs, and get to a point where we're like, okay, I want one of those forwards, and I want it, with the sporty, and I want it in blue. And then suddenly you're driving around and you see that car over and over again, because that is where you've put your intention and your focus, and your brain is kind of anchored into a decision, and suddenly it's everywhere. It was always everywhere, but because you suddenly started focusing, you start to see that car everywhere. What you start to not see is the cars that you would have paid attention to before you made that decision.
Yeah, but imagine what life would look like if instead of saying, I want this car, you will say, I want the best car that meets these criteria and it aligns with my values of, environmentally friendly or whatever. So you have some criteria and purpose behind it, and you become open to it.
Curious.
Right? And be curious to explore the world, to see what's possible. And maybe if it doesn't exist, then you might even create it. Right?
Yes.
So if you look at that car and you say, like, that's what I want, then that's what you're going to get. But if you are looking at the bigger picture and saying, like, what's my intention? Why I do even want that car, right? What are the values behind it? What are the supporting beliefs that resonate with me about that car? And then explore the world with that open curiosity to either find it, discover it, or build it. Then that becomes powerful. And our mindset sometimes can be very limiting when we put ourselves in a box of this is what we know, this is how it is, it's black and white, it's right and wrong, and that's it. There's a quote by Elon Musk. I was watching once one of the interviews, and the journalist asked him, he said, how is it possible that you, without any experience in automotive industry, you managed to create something like Tesla, that despite not having any experience, you still managed to do this? How? And he says, I haven't created this despite not having that experience. I have created it because I don't have that experience, which then means that I'm not limited by what I think is possible and realistic within those boxes. So I think to me, it's a huge lesson that we are taking to innovation, to, startup development. Like now I'm working with, entrepreneurs, people who are developing their own new ideas. And this, I think, is powerful. If you can create that mindset for yourself when you are not limited by your current learning and exposure to what is possible, what is realistic, then you can really create something innovative. Somebody
Yeah.
had to invent the planes and light bulbs and all of these things that don't exist, right? And if you share it to somebody, someone will look at you like, really? Like, where are you thinking? Like, we're gonna fly in the sky one day? Like, no way. Like, come down on the earth. This is not realistic. And they have been telling each other, set your SMART goals, specific, realistic, reasonable, rational. Don't do that.
Well,
Free
no.
yourself from that mindset and be
Yeah.
free to dream, right? Like
Yeah.
a child discovering new world and exploring what's possible.
Yeah, and we all know, and we're both very much in agreement that, being iconoclastic and knowing that we're swimming against the tide, we're not conforming to society, and that, that can be tiring at times. And we know we're going to get a lot of kickback from society saying, oh, it's a bit far-fetched, it's a bit challenging. And I suppose that in our own way fuels us on, because we're swimming, against the tide out to an island where no one's really there. But when we get there, all of a sudden people will be looking over from the shore like, oh, that looks like a really abundant place to go right now. But by then we'll be swimming off to the next island. And, as we come towards the end of the show, we could literally talk about this all day. And I think there's some really positives for people to take away about connecting personal, professional, and organizational development together, about really linking into the fact that KPIs don't start with performance. They thread through into well-being, and they thread through into organizational culture, and actually keeping them sustainable. It's not something that, is so simple as a sliver of performance at the top. And another thing as well for people to just remember is that positive mindset is powerful if used in a self-aware way. And just being aware that, as human beings, we do have a negativity bias, and, our own self-talk and, our negative stimulation will stick to our brains like Velcro, because we're designed that way. But actually, we can start to, become more aware of that. By being more aware, start to actually build, some aspects of positivity into our lives that help us to ask better questions, because no one teaches us. We're taught in school to find answers and get them on a piece of paper and welcome through to the next stage of your life, when actually it's the questions that we ask ourselves. And when we first start, we get really bad answers because we need to practice, questioning as a skill. And it's something that does take time, and there's a real beauty to exploring that. So, Evelina, what's on the horizon for you? What's coming up? What should we be looking forward to?
Oh, well, for me, my next direction, when I'm setting up those intentions and goals for myself, where everything is possible, I intend to change the way the mental health system works and the way support is being provided for others, to really enable every person to help themselves first and create those healthy environments in the workplace to facilitate this individual resilience. And at the moment with my team, we are building the very first psychometric assessment for mental health and well-being. Because as we talked about, it all starts with self-awareness, right? And if you don't know what you need to do, what you need to work on, if you don't know on your strengths and weaknesses, then we cannot take action, and as we know, mental health system in itself is broken. It's so much money being poured into it and it doesn't get better. So why are we keep doing what we're doing and expecting different results? We need to do something differently. And I've taken on that on myself, saying, right, if this doesn't work, what can we do? How can we make it work, right? How can we make it differently? And it's looking at enabling each person to find their own drivers for well-being, for their mental health, identify their own risks in a way that allows them to take very specific action to help themselves. And it's a really exciting journey. There's a lot of work to be done, but it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, and I'm excited myself, because that really is where the cutting edge of health innovation is. Looking at people being able to, take an element of authority for their own health behaviours, but actually look at things proactively, because our whole healthcare system is built on reactivity. And in a world,
symptoms, right?
Yeah, and in a world where actually, if we start to travel upstream, and realize and start to look at, what are the actual causes, but also actually look proactively at the positives as well, and be able to compound the positives while starting to target anything that's upstream, that's a challenge, much earlier. We suddenly start to see how things can shift, and that's just incredibly exciting. So where can people find out more about the app and more about yourself, Evelina?
Yeah, so for my corporate work and work with businesses, it's elitemind.co.uk, and for more of my mental health developments that I'm talking about, it's elitemind.academy. And from there, you'll be able to find all sorts of links for different support options for individuals, for businesses, for other health and well-being coaches who really want to make bigger impact. So I'm more than happy to connect, to answer questions, and I think what I'm the most grateful for is for all of the support that I've received along this journey. And to me, to think that when you share the vision and you share the purpose, and people come to you and say, that's how much time I have this month, what can I do for you? That's the power of vision and purpose, directed to that project. So I'd encourage everyone to be part of that, and to come on board and say, right, I want to be part of this movement. Enough is enough. Let's create the better world on our own terms and take part in that. So thank you.
And that is a call to action worth taking up. So thank you again, Evelina, for being part of the Self-Aware Entrepreneur Show, and thank you for everyone for tuning in on this afternoon. And once again, we'll be back next week with a range of guests coming from different areas again. Guests looking at psychology, guests looking at business, and guests looking at entrepreneurship, sharing stories, sharing insights, and really looking how we can become more self-aware in the work that we do, the lives that we lead, the relationships that we have, and ultimately more self-aware of ourselves. And that is what we're all looking to achieve. So thank you to everyone again, and we will see you next week.